Well, that announcement from the minister due to start in just 54 minutes' time. You can imagine how difficult it was for the matric learners in the class of 2020 last year. Also, certain clues I think will come through from our education system when we see the matric results, including issues around inequality. We'll see the full impact of the actual COVID-19 lockdown. Professor Michael Lacordia is a professor of education at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. I imagine at this stage it's quite difficult to predict how the class of 2020 will have done, but are you expecting a pass rate that will be lower than in previous years because of the pandemic?
Stephen, good afternoon, and good afternoon to our listeners. Thank you for having me on your show. Stephen, it's a very difficult situation to predict. If everything is square and fair, I predict a very slight, but only a very slight drop in the pass rate, if at all. And there are reasons why I'm saying so.
What are the reasons? Why do you believe that it will be just a slight dip?
Look, one must bear in mind, that your grade 12 exam is the culmination of a 12-year journey. And many schools, uh, those schools who are doing their best and who are doing their job for the past 12 years will see that their learners will eventually uh, benefit from all the efforts and all the inputs at a particular school, which means that we cannot depend on the grade 12 year alone to get that particular good results. So where those systems have been in place, I predict that there won't be any significant drop, if at all. But then again, we all know that for the majority of South African matric learners, that is not the case. In which case, I think the pass rate can be lower, and because we must also be fair and say it has been a very difficult year for most of the matric learners. Many of them have been out of school for a long while, and it has to impact on the final result.
I imagine for most children it was certainly harder to study, more difficult to study, perhaps more difficult to get the resources and the materials and the face-to-face learning. There might be some, maybe in the sort of the higher income areas, that had fewer distractions. So, for example, and I mean, on some level, this is a tragedy because some people would have spent their entire, school career working towards being in the first football team or the first rugby team or cricket or debating or chess or whatever it is. All of that was taken away from them. What I'm trying to get to is there might also have been fewer distractions for maybe a small number of learners.
Yeah, but then again, we must remember that we are living in a country where everything is not always equal. Yes, many learners have been taken away from the sports field or culture or all those kind of outdoor activities, which would have given them more time to spend, before or behind their desks. But then on the other side, there are many learners, just think for a while, those schools or those households where they have, fresh water. And now you have an 18-year-old sitting at home and whose parents will ask of him or her to go and fetch some water before he or she could get to their books. So yes, some would have had more time to study, but for many others, there won't be any change.
I mean, one of the things, and it's been one of the big conversations of the pandemic and the lockdown, has been about inequality and particularly education inequality. Could it be possible, maybe even useful to researchers, to look at the matric results school by school when we get them later? And you can almost plot our inequality geographically as a result, partly because of the impact of the pandemic.
Yes, in fact, I've already started to do that, but province by province, and to see, I'm hoping, or I'm eagerly awaiting the outcome of the results, because I would want to see, like take for instance a province like the Eastern Cape, where we know that the pandemic has had a severe impact in society. So one would want to know whether that impact goes further and even has an impact on the school's environment and how children perform in their schools. So yes, that could be a rich source of data that I think many researchers will want to explore in the very near future.
There's so many things to talk about when it comes to this issue, and particularly, online learning as well. Some schools sort of tended to rely on that, maybe not for matrics, but certainly this is a moment to assess in some areas if online learning really worked. And I know the IEB exams released last week maybe give you more of an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and when you look at the IAB results, 89.8 in 2019 and 89.2 there about in 2020, which means less than a percent drop in the rate of the IAB. And it is known, and in fact, many of those schools have admitted to the fact that because they have had access to online teaching and online courses, in many cases, it felt for many learners as if they were not, many of them did not even lose a single day of schooling in 2020. So you would have had that scenario. On the other hand, there are many schools where there are no online facilities available, where there are no online teaching to speak of. And I think, or I'm hoping that schools and school environments will take this thing seriously, because COVID is not going, to disappear in the near future. It will be with us for a while still. And now is the time, the opportune time for schools and for governing bodies to take this opportunity and to make sure that they also start somewhere as far as online teaching is concerned, even if it means to form groups, on WhatsApp, to make sure that every teacher can speak to his or her class via WhatsApp. But we will have to start somewhere. And then, of course, your broader society, your businessmen, your businesses, your local people in the environment will have to form partnerships with schools. They will have to come to the party. And business leaders must look around, because by just looking around, you will find a school where you can assist and where you can make an impact.
There are going to be all sorts of conversations as a result of the matric results that will be released in 45 minutes' time or so. One of them, I suspect, will be an examination about how to do pandemic teaching better. But there'll be other lessons as well around inequality. Do you think tonight will actually be the start of a process where we start to learn lessons to make sure that the class of 2021 is better prepared than the class of 2020, even if there is a third wave of COVID-19?
Yeah, I would have imagined that process has already started, because like I said, COVID is not going to disappear, and we're moving into, the fourth industrial generation. We are moving towards technology, and learners, 18-year-olds, the youth, they are very much clued up with technology, and schools and teachers will have no choice but to engage and but to embark on this road of technology. So yes, we must all think and rethink, the way we are teaching. We at our university here at Stellenbosch, we had to change the way we are doing things almost overnight. And that change will continue, because we haven't, managed to find the best way. And I think you put the question there, what is the best way of teaching online? I don't know yet. People don't know yet. But what we do know is that this will be the future. And we must start doing research. We must start to embark on this new road, because between now and next year, we will have to find a new way of schooling that will eventually reach more learners in 2021 that we have managed to do in 2020.
Professor Michael Akkordia, thanks very much indeed. Really do appreciate it. Professor of Education.